Actor Zelda Williams reached out to you about this role after having trouble finding the perfect person to play Taffy. I can't imagine any other actress playing this role. What were some of those early conversations that you had with her about this part? And what was it about this character that resonated with you?
So, the day that I got asked by Zelda herself to audition for it was actually the second time I had ever met her. We
Mm,
were having dinner with my management, and it was kind of a follow-up meeting because I was really just trying to become friends with Zelda because I was looking for sort of like an older sister figure out here in LA who could kind of teach me some lessons about Hollywood and acting
mm,
and everything. And it was like serendipity because that second meetup was the day that Lisa Frankenstein got greenlit for her. And she kind of shared the news in the middle of our dinner. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. And she was like, wait, I just remembered I'm like in the middle of like casting for one of the major characters in the movie. You should audition. That's what she said. And I was like, huh, me? Why are you asking me to audition? Like, you just met me. You haven't even seen my movies yet.
mm,
And then she was like, well, I've been auditioning a bunch of people and I feel like they're just not understanding what it is that I'm looking for in this character. And I was like, okay, so why do you think I would do a good job at portraying her? And then she was like, well, the character kind of requires this type of earnest
mhm.
from her, and I see that in you. And I was like, I felt so touched, and I was just so, there's this Filipino word called kilig. I was just so kilig that she even thought of thought I would be able to portray the character and give it justice. So there's that.
Yeah. You're such a standout in this film, and you have such an affinity for filmmaking. You recently started your own production studio. Have you found that the work that you've now been doing behind the camera has impacted the way that you approach your work on screen as an actor or vice versa?
Oh, for sure. Now that like I've been doing a lot more work behind the scenes too. I have much more of an understanding and appreciation for film in general, I would say. It's crazy because like on the back end side, you're thinking about the business side of things, but also just truly like nurturing and developing the story and everything. And I think that's something that I'm a little bit more passionate about. It's the
Mm,
storytelling aspect of it. But now that I'm more aware of like the business side of it and the more technical side of it, it's like, oh, I never really understood how hard it is to actually make or produce a film. And now like I genuinely have like empathy for all these producers and directors out here. Like I truly understand now like why they ask us to extend sometimes and whatnot. But as an actor, it has affected me in a different way. It's like I think about the more technical sides of things. So like I'm more conscious about the camera and the lighting and
mm,
everything that's going on behind the scenes. But it's also great because going back into like a director producer hat, it's like I have so much input as an actor because I've been doing this for so many years, and I feel like it kind of helps me with storytelling a lot more and just being able to actually explain and describe things to people that I work with.
mm. Great answer. And your comedic timing in this film is absolutely hilarious. So you bring, like you're just saying, such an earnest quality to Taffy that's so compelling to watch. Has comedy always come easy to you? And how much of the what we see in the film is scripted versus improvised?
Mhm. I wouldn't say that comedy comes easy to me. If anything, I think it's the hardest genre to pull
Mm,
off. I get very nervous when it comes to the scenes where I have to be extra funny because I don't find myself to be funny, to be honest. It's like I feel like I'm very dry and awkward and everything. But I think the important thing about comedy is trying not to be funny. And that's what
mhm.
Zelda also had to remind me about. She was like, you don't realize it, but you're actually very funny. And she was like, that's how I need Taffy to be. I don't need her to try to be funny. I just need her to be herself. And that's when like the genuine like funniness comes out. There were a few scenes that were ad libs. I'm not, have you seen the film?
Yeah, I just watched it this
Yeah.
afternoon.
So the phone call that I had with the police with my father when we are looking for Janet, that was actually improvised because
Mm,
the original script was like it was very descriptive. It had a they were referencing like a lot of the popular looks from back in the 80s. And Janet didn't look like anything that was described in the script. So Zelda came up to me and she was like, you know, the script says like she's going to have frosted tips and everything. And obviously Janet doesn't look like that right now. So I'm going to kind of need you to improvise and just describe Janet as someone who like truly knows her inside and out and like really loves her and like just admires her and is kind of obsessed with her. And then she was like, you know how like when you see your dog and you can remember like every tiny little quirk about them, I want you to talk about Janet like you're looking for your lost puppy or something like that. And so that's where like the whole conversation about like, you know how a golden like a Labrador looks
Yeah.
reddish brown under light. Yeah, so that's where that started, and that was all improvised. And I'm sure Catherine came up with a lot of her own ad libs as well.
The two of you have such electric chemistry on screen, and you've always been such a trailblazer throughout your career. And it's amazing to see so many incredible women in front of and behind the camera on this project, especially women of color. What has this moment meant to you, especially as you're making your US film debut? What will you remember most from this filming experience?
I think what I'll remember most from this filming experience was just how much fun I had, how much of a good time we all genuinely had on set. I remember this one conversation I had with Cole, and this was on the last day of our filming. And I was coming from a place where like I was feeling kind of lost in my career back home, and I wasn't like really sure about my whole move to Hollywood or LA if it was going to be any good for me or not. And while I was having that conversation with Cole, I also mentioned that like, you know, this film, I felt so happy throughout the whole process of filming it. I didn't feel pressured. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel as nervous as I thought I was going to feel. And I was like, how come it felt so easy and it felt so fun? And then he was like, you know what? This is actually a very special set. I've been making films since I was like 6 months old. And I can tell you like this is very rare. And so that's when I realized like I thought at first that like maybe Hollywood is just like this, like it's just fun on set. But he was like, no, this is actually very rare for me too. And so I'll just always remember how much of a good time we all had and how well we all bonded. And Zelda was an amazing like leader on the set. She made sure that everyone felt heard, everyone felt like they were equally like as important on the set as
Mm.
everyone else. And I think that played a very important role in like the overall working environment.